If you list 8 or more houses a year in Iowa, you already have a closing team. You just haven't hired them yet. Right now, it's you. After 9 p.m., texting sellers about things that are not your job. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you what a real closing team looks like for an Iowa listing agent, what each person on it actually costs you. Spoiler, most of it is time, not money. And the 3 places Iowa deals most often fall apart, and what a real closing team does to keep them together so you win more listings and lose fewer nights and weekends. I'm Jeremy Danilson. I'm a real estate attorney in Iowa. My firm sits in the middle of hundreds of residential transactions a year, which means I have a view a lot of listing agents don't. I see which agents are running tight operations and growing, and I see which ones are burning out trying to do everything themselves. This video is for listing agents who are past their first couple years, carrying 8 or more listings a year, and starting to feel the ceiling. If that's you, you're not going to break through it by working more hours. You break through it by building a team around the listing. Let's start with the number nobody wants to do in their head. What is your hour actually worth? Take your last 12 months of commission income. Divide it by the hours you worked. Not the 40 hours a regular job gets paid for, the real number. Evenings, weekends, the drive home where you're still answering texts. Most of the listing agents I've run this exercise with end up somewhere in the $100 to $250 an hour range once the math is honest. Call it $150 for the sake of argument. Now, how much of your week is spent doing work that is actually worth $150 an hour? Showings, price conversations, negotiating the contract, rebuilding the listing photos. Yes, that's your work. That's what you sold yourself to the seller for. How much of your week is spent chasing down inspection reports, babysitting a title issue, answering the same wire fraud question from a nervous seller for the 3rd time, and circling back with the lender because the appraisal came in low? That's not a $150 an hour job. That's closer to $30 or $40 an hour work. And every hour of it you do yourself is an hour you're not spending in front of a new seller. That's the leak. That's what the closing team plugs. Here's what a closing team looks like for an Iowa listing agent. 4 seats. Seat 1 is you. Your job is the listing, the sellers, and the negotiation. That's the revenue producing work. You're the face the seller signed up for. Nobody else sits in that seat. Seat 2 is a transaction coordinator. Maybe you have one in-house. Maybe you share one. Maybe you outsource. Their job is deadlines and paperwork. They run the timeline, track the contingencies, and make sure every form that needs to be signed gets signed before the calendar says it should. A good TC can save a listing agent 10 to 15 hours per deal. If you don't have one yet, that is the first hire. Full stop. Seat 3 is the real estate attorney. In Iowa, this is not optional noise. Somebody has to read the abstract. Somebody has to issue Iowa Title Guaranty certificate. Somebody has to look at the purchase agreement and catch the clause that is going to blow up the closing on day 32. That somebody has to be an attorney licensed in Iowa. If you don't have one you work with consistently, your sellers are rolling the dice every time. Seat 4 is a closing security vendor. At my firm, we use Closing Lock. But whatever platform you use, there needs to be something sitting between your seller's wire instructions and the criminal who wants to steal them. Wire fraud is the single fastest way a real estate deal becomes a federal case. A security platform isn't a nice to have anymore. It's table stakes. 4 seats. You sit in one. 3 other people in the others. That's the team. Now, if you trained under somebody who came from another state, or you read agent content written for a national audience, some of what I just said might not sound like the playbook you've heard. That's because Iowa is its own thing. We're the only state in the country that doesn't use traditional title insurance. Instead, Iowa has Iowa Title Guaranty, a state-run program that issues title guarantee certificates backed by the state itself. It's usually cheaper than what buyers pay for title insurance in other states, and it's specifically for Iowa. Here's where it matters for you as an agent. The attorney on the deal isn't just reviewing documents. In most Iowa transactions, the attorney is the one reading the abstract and issuing the Iowa Title Guarantee commitment on behalf of the state. That's called a field issuer. So when you hear me say, the attorney, understand that person isn't a step you can skip or swap out for a settlement company from another state. The abstract work and guarantee work are attached at the hip, which means if you list in Iowa and you don't have an attorney you trust sitting in that third seat, you don't have a closing team. You have a gap. And that gap is where deals go to die and where listings quietly decide to use a different agent next time. If you're looking at your last 12 months of listings and realizing you don't actually have somebody consistent in that third seat, I'd like to make this easy. The link in the description books a 15-minute intro call with our firm. No contract, no retainer, just a conversation about what your listing pipeline looks like, how you currently handle abstracts and title issues, and whether you're fit to sit in that seat for your next deal. Back to the video. Let me give you something you can use tomorrow. Here's a sentence you can add to your listing presentation. Short, specific, no overpromising. Before we go under contract, I'll connect you with our closing team. That's the transaction coordinator who runs the calendar, the Iowa real estate attorney who reviews the abstract and the contract, and a secure platform that protects your wire when it's time to close. Say that in a listing presentation. Just that. Then stop talking. What you'll notice is that the seller's shoulders drop because the thing they were quietly worried about is this agent actually going to handle my transaction, or am I on my own when it gets complicated? You just answered without making a single promise you can't keep. 3 scenarios, short and specific. Scenario 1, messy title. Your seller inherited the house from a parent who died 8 years ago. Nobody ever probated the estate. The abstract comes back with a chain of title that looks like a knot. Without an attorney sitting in seat 3, you find this out at day 22, and you spend the next 3 weeks trying to unwind it while the buyer's lender gets nervous and the closing date slips twice. With an attorney on the team from day 1, the abstract gets examined early, the title objection gets flagged early, and the fix, whether that's a probate filing, an affidavit, or a quiet title action, gets started before the buyer even signs. Scenario 2, out-of-state seller. Your seller moved to Arizona 3 years ago and the house has been a rental. They don't want to fly back to Iowa to sign closing documents. In the old days, that was a real problem. Now with remote online notarization, RON, your attorney can close that seller from anywhere in the country with a good internet connection. No flights, no overnight notaries, no missed signatures. That's the team earning its keep. Scenario 3, the wire fraud scare. 2 weeks before closing, your seller forwards you an email that looks like it came from the title company with new wire instructions. It didn't. It came from a scammer who's been reading their email for a month. If you don't have a secure platform in the loop, you're trying to catch that yourself on your phone between showings. If you do, the platform flagged the instructions the second they hit the thread, and your seller never saw the fake version. 3 scenarios, 1 team, and every one of those is a real deal I've seen run through our office. Here's what I don't want you to hear. I don't want you to hear that building a closing team means signing a retainer, paying a monthly fee, or agreeing to send every listing to the same attorney forever. That's not what I'm describing. Building your closing team is a phone call. Ours is 15 minutes. You can tell me how you run your listings. I tell you how we run our side of a closing, and we figure out whether the chemistry is there. We'll also walk through our service tiers so you understand the options your sellers will see. Some want a light touch review. Some want guided representation through closing. And some want us on every wire and every signature from offer to keys. The tier matches the deal. If we're a fit, we slot in on your next listing so you're not scrambling to find an attorney once a problem appears. Here's the short version. If you're listing 8 or more houses a year in Iowa, you already have a closing team. The question is whether you built it on purpose or whether the roles are just defaulting back to you at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. 4 seats. You, a transaction coordinator, an Iowa real estate attorney, and a closing security platform. Build that and the deals get easier. Build it on purpose and you stand out in a listing presentation because sellers can feel the difference between an agent who's a team and an agent who's an island.